For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
Hello and welcome to StratNewsGlobal. I'm Surya Gangadharan. The India-Myanmar Kaladan connectivity project continues to inch forward despite 14 years since it was conceived. I have a small graphic here to illustrate what I'm talking about. The project is important. It will provide access to the northeastern states through Myanmar instead of the crowded and often choked Siliguri corridor. When completed, goods can be shipped directly from eastern ports in India to the Sitwe port in Rakhine state of Myanmar. It's a distance of a little over 500 kilometers. From there, goods will be shipped on barrages and via bridges that will cross the Kaladan River. And there are roads and bridges India is building that will ferry goods forward into Mizoram, where the goods will be unloaded and sold. So that is basically what the Kaladan project is about. It has cost India over $300 million, $370 million to be precise. And it's not clear how much longer it could take. So I'm going to talk to somebody in the region who is got his feet on the ground and knows what's going on. Rajeev Bhattacharya, an old friend and a colleague from Assam. He is based in Gauhati, and he's been following the Kaladan project for a long time. He's also been tracking developments in Myanmar. Both are vital to this, to what we are now discussing. Rajiv, welcome. Glad to have you.
Thank you.
Tell me, this project, what is going on? Can you update us on it? What is going on?
Well, you see, India and Myanmar entered into a framework agreement for the project in 2008. Now, after 2008, several deadlines have been missed. Since the execution of the project commenced in 2010. Now, the next deadline is 2023, next year. But completing the project in the existing circumstances appear to be very difficult. Rather, I would say it's impossible. The other components of the project that have already been completed in Myanmar includes the construction of the Sitwe port on the Kaladan River, mouth in Rakhine state. Next, a river terminal in Koletwa and dredging of the Kaladan River. That is in Myanmar. Now, so if we come to Mizoram side, more than 80% of the road, the 87 kilometers highway between Jorwin Kui on the border and the district headquarters of Longklai, more than 80% has been completed. So this is the...
So that is on our side of the border. That is in Mizoram.
87 in Mizoram, and on the other side, that very crucial 109 kilometers that will come gradually. What has not been completed. So the whatever has been completed is the construction of the Sitwe port on the Kaladan River, on the mouth of the Rakhine, in Rakhine state, a river terminal in Koletwa, and the dredging of the Kaladan River. These things have been completed.
These have been completed, in process.
Completed, rather. In fact, you see, dredging is a continuous process. Now, if you start dredging, like, it has to go on. If once the activity takes off, then it's a continuous process. In fact, it has to go on. But so far, these components have been completed. Now, almost 80% of the road also in Mizoram side till Longklai, not beyond, which will come later on.
Ultimately, this road will stretch up to Aizawl. I mean,
No.
the capital of...
Yeah. Now see, from Longklai to Aizawl and then to Silchar, which is most important. Now, this is approximately 450 kilometers. Now, Silchar is a very strategic location in South Assam, not far from the India-Bangladesh border, and Silchar also is linked to the East-West corridor to Gujarat, Porbandar. Now, beyond Longklai, it's very surprising and typical of the Indian government that it's very typical. The road is so narrow. In fact, I have wondered many times. The road is, I won't say it is as bad as Nagaland roads or Arunachal roads. It's good. Conditions are relatively, well, it's fine. But that road cannot handle a large volume of traffic. Now the government is planning to broaden the highway. Now, I think it's going to start in a very short while. From Longklai to Aizawl and from Aizawl to Silchar. It's approximately 450 kilometers. And you can imagine the time it will take because of land compensation, land acquisition, disputes, compensation to landlords. It's going to take a hell lot of time, I believe. So this is the
Not so
problem.
fickle. So, is there an
Yes.
alternative to the Kaladan route?
You see, the government had envisaged three routes through the northeast. One is through the Kaladan route, which would have been most commercially profitable, because from the sea, it's going to use the sea to Kolkata, then to other ports also eventually. We have already seen the condition of the Kaladan route, it's uncertain. The next route was also through Mizoram, through Champai, through the border district of Champai to Tidim, from Tidim to Mandalay, and then, of course, to connecting the trilateral highway. Now, we know that the region contiguous to the Indian border, Sagaing Division and Chin State, these have emerged as the hotspots of the resistance movement against the military regime. Too much of violence is going on. The reason is that the global media has not given enough attention to all this because you don't have access. It's not possible to go there. Unlike Ukraine, no journalist can go there and report. If you are caught, you are finished. Okay, it's even more dangerous than Afghanistan. So that route is also, I don't see the possibility of that route being completed very soon. There is one route that is really taking off. I believe will take off. Construction is on the road from Silchar, the rail line, and the highway from Silchar to Imphal, from Imphal to More. This is in Manipur. Now, the rail line will reach a place called Tupul near Imphal. I think by next year or next to next year. Construction is on in full swing. Okay, although in the midst of some controversies also. Now, from Tupul to More, across More you have Tamu.
Yeah.
Now, this route, the rail line, eventually the rail line will go to More, and also the road, the highway. Now, the problem is across the border in More is Tamu and the Sagaing Division, one of the greatest hotspots of conflict in Myanmar currently. Even only day before yesterday, the army had raided and killed 3 persons. Only day before yesterday. They came to a village about, say, 9 kilometers from the border, Indian border. In point blank, they shot 3 people and they left the dead bodies. That is much better. Sometimes they have been burning people alive, the military regime. We have seen photographs. Now, this is one road which I believe is going to develop as the major artery, providing an access to the northeast to Myanmar, from Myanmar to Southeast Asia. But if you ask me a timeline, a date, when it's going to be completed, when it's going to become a reality, that is very difficult to say because of the situation in Myanmar. I mean, nobody will do business when conflict is on, when bombing is on, when nobody's going to do business there. Nobody's going to come. But then Indian government is going ahead with the project, is going ahead with the construction. So this route, I see the greatest possibility of being developed as a major artery as and when the conflict comes to an end. This is the possibility.
Tell me, in Rakhine State, how bad is the situation? Is the junta in control? Is it local militias that are running the show?
Well, see, in Rakhine State, one problem we know was the Rohingya problem. But the Rohingyas are settled in an area where the Indian project, Kaladan project, doesn't touch. It's the region near the Myanmar Bangladesh border. That's the Rohingya population.
Yeah.
Now the other part of Myanmar where the Kaladan project passes through is Chin State, just below Mizoram, and below Chin State is Rakhine State. Now here a very powerful insurgent outfit is active. That is Arakan Army. Now, Arakan Army had entered into an informal ceasefire in November 2020. Arakan Army was also the outfit that had abducted some Indian personnel. I think that was in November also 2020. 5 people, 1 person died of heart attack, and the rest were released. In the last 2 months, there have been indications that the ceasefire might break down, the informal ceasefire between the Arakan Army and the Myanmar junta, the military regime. There are indications, strong indications. There have been 2 incidents in the last 2 months when the Arakan Army had gone and attacked some people. They picked up some people. The Myanmar Army had come and picked up some people they felt was sympathetic to Arakan Army. Now, if conflict erupts there, the project might get delayed. Because you see, nobody would go and take the risk. I mean, you are working on a rail line or a road component. Suddenly, a bomb comes and falls on your head or near
Yeah.
you. You will not feel comfortable. Nobody will go there. Okay, so that is the scenario in Rakhine State. Very unpredictable, and some I might sound pessimistic, but the reality is that there is a strong possibility of conflict erupting again in Rakhine State and Chin State, the region above Rakhine State bordering Mizoram. This is the reality.
So this Arakan Army, is it a purely Rohingya outfit? Is it broader? Who are they?
Well, this is simply an ethnic rebel army, nothing to do with the Rohingya. These are local Buddhists. It's a Buddhist-dominated Buddhist people of Rakhine and Chin State. Now, Chin State, if you go, the majority population they are Christians, but as you come to the southern side, there are Buddhists, and there are some Buddhist villages in Mizoram also. It's very interesting. There are some Rakhine, these are called Rakhine Buddhists. They have got some presence inside Mizoram also. They have got some villages. They cannot understand the Mizo language, the Lusai language or the Lai language. It's a massive problem for them, language problem, no development. I have gone there way back in 2018. Now, Arakan Army is it's an ethnic rebel army. Their grievances are somewhat similar to the usual grievances of an insurgent outfit. That we have been exploited, our resources are being taken away. We have not gained any benefits out of all the projects that are coming up. And Rakhine State, there are huge projects that are being envisaged by China. Special economic zone, a deep sea port. So Arakan Army says, what do we have? What have we benefited? We have not benefited anything. The local people have not benefited. The outsiders are coming and taking advantage. So this is about Arakan Army, supposedly a very effective insurgent outfit with immense resources, and they are linked to insurgent outfits in northern Myanmar, such as Kachin Independence Army. They have got very close linkages. Arakan Army emerged in Kachin. Their cadres were trained in Kachin. So they have also got a very wide linkage in the entire country and beyond the country also.
So who is arming the Arakan Army? Who is behind them?
Well, you see, when a group of people decides to start an insurgent outfit in Myanmar, there are some preconditions: funds, cadres, weapons. Now, you see, since as I've already told you, it's linked to Kachin Independence Army. It's linked to some other big insurgent outfits in Myanmar. So their problem of weapons is over. Now there are indigenous factories in Myanmar manufacturing very good weapons, Kalashnikov rifles. A rifle that will cost you, say, 4 lakhs of rupees in Yunnan province of China, you get that in 2 lakhs or 1.5 lakhs in Myanmar. Excuse me. We have information of 2 factories in northern Myanmar that have been producing these assault rifles. Okay, so the problem of weapons is gone. Now, so far, when you say about who is sponsoring them, there were rumors that Arakan Army was being utilized by China. There had been some we heard some rumors that they have got strong linkages with China at one point of time. All these things are available on the internet. Some senior generals of Myanmar Army had gone on record saying this, that we know about these linkages of Arakan Army. But if you think deeply, if you join the dots, now China has a policy of, in fact, not only China, many countries do that, have a policy of sponsoring insurgent outfits in a different territory, foreign territory. Yeah, many countries do that. In fact, to be frank, America has also done that, India has also done that. Okay, so this is nothing unusual. Now, Rakhine being a very strategic location, so it is nothing surprising that even if at a later point of time we find that Arakan Army had or has linkages with China, it's nothing to be surprised. Rather, of late, very recently, we have heard that Arakan Army has been trying to forge linkages with other countries also.
Sorry, say again?
Arakan Army has been trying to forge linkages with other countries also. This is very recently, maybe in the last 5 or 6 months.
Mhm.
So maybe there is a possibility that some equations might have gone wrong between Arakan Army and China, because China is strongly supporting the military regime. Arakan Army, the relationship between Arakan Army and military regime has ruptured recently.
Mhm.
So Arakan Army would not want China to give them to order them from Beijing, saying that okay, now you cannot fight with the military regime. Okay, so these are very complexities involved. I think the situation is changing in Rakhine State so far as the Arakan Army is concerned. They are looking for ways and means now. They are trying to expand their ties. They are trying to forge linkages with other countries. This is the information we have right at the moment.
Are you? I mean, you have your feet on the ground, Rajiv. Any indication, any hint that we have reached out to the Arakan Army because we have a huge stake here.
Well, you see, uh, according to media reports, IRCON, in IRCON, which is a government PSU,
Yeah.
IRCON was given the role of consultancy in that growth component, in that project in Rakhine State. Now, according to media reports, the government has told IRCON to try and conclude form of agreements with local subcontractors for the project.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I tried to reach out to IRCON. That was not possible. I have filed an RTI. I have asked them, okay, if tell me the latest situation, latest status, because it's very difficult to establish contact sitting in Guwahati with a agency or a firm in Delhi. They'll not pick up the phone, but they'll not answer your questions. So I filed an RTI. Now, there are many things we keep on hearing here and there, but see, this is a very sensitive question you have asked me. So without confirmation, I would not like to comment anything on this topic, because if I say something now, if it proves to be false, then obviously my reputation is tarnished. But
Yeah.
we do keep on hearing many things. So it's in a realm of speculation, I would suggest. But as I've told you, Arakan Army, that is for sure. Arakan Army has been trying to forge linkages with other countries also for a variety of reasons. Because they know at some point of time, conflict might erupt seriously again with the military regime. In that case, they need support. So we hear from very reliable sources that they have been trying, this is confirmed, that they have been trying to forge linkages, establish ties with other agencies, other countries in the world. That is for sure. Okay, we know for sure that some leaders of Arakan Army are based in Thailand. We know that for sure. Okay, so we keep on hearing because nothing is very specific. So I would like to give my comment in a very specific manner. Speculative, it's very speculative.
So, what is your sense of the Myanmar junta's control over the country? Is it decreasing, diminishing? Is it weakening?
The Myanmar regime, the military regime, never imagined that there will be a upsurge, there will be a mass movement against the regime. It is unthinkable. People without any weaponry, any sophisticated weaponry, they have been manufacturing their own weapons, guns, bombs, ammunition. Uh, Myanmar army, we are told from again very reliable sources, they are on the back foot in many areas in Myanmar. And this upsurge, this resistance movement, unlike the previous occasions, this resistance movement is not confined only to some pockets. Number one, it is widespread. Number two, in 1989, and what happened is that when there was an uprising in Yangon, the Myanmar regime, the junta, had succeeded to form up alliances with some major ethnic rebel armies. Kachin Independence Army in '94. Fortunately for the regime, the CPB, Communist Party of Burma, collapsed and it splintered into 5 outfits, including the United War State Army, which also entered into an agreement immediately in 1989. That it is UWSA today is a narco army. It's one of the biggest in the world. They even have helicopters also supplied by China in Shan State. Now, this is a situation where ethnic rebel armies have joined hands with the PDFs, People's Defense Forces. Many ethnic rebel armies have been training the local people who live in the valleys. People who live in the valleys have been coming and taking training 40 days, 50 days, and then they are dispatched. Okay, this is an unprecedented situation in Myanmar. Very interesting, very sad also. People have been burnt alive. When the Myanmar army comes and raids villages, if they get the chance, they burn people alive. I have got photographs. Okay. Now, nobody loving this is something unimaginable. So, there are strong indications to answer your questions that the Myanmar army is on the back foot. But that doesn't mean that the military regime will collapse immediately. It's very difficult to say. If you're not on the ground, you read something else, it's very difficult to form a very realistic assessment. I mean, if you go to the ground, you might see a very different situation in front of your eyes, actually. That's what I have found myself all over the Northeast. Wherever you go, the situation on the ground is very different from what you have been reading throughout in the last 2, 3 decades. So, situation is very unpredictable. The Myanmar army is not very comfortable. But the fact remains that China and Russia are strongly supporting the regime. So we can't say that the military regime will collapse immediately or in a short span. And also remember, it depends upon the character of the people. The Myanmarese people are like the Vietnamese. They will not give up. Neither the local people nor the military regime. They will go on fighting.
Yeah.
This is what I can say about the Myanmarese people. They are very gritty, determined, perseverant. They will not give up. Even if it means killings, raids, bombings, anything. That is what I can sense, right? Sitting here, hundreds of kilometers from the border or from the hotspots. I can sense that by talking to some people. The situation
So would
is
you
very-
say would you say this is the first time the Burmese military is facing opposition from within its own ethnic hunting grounds, recruiting grounds?
So not the first time. You see, what happened once in the late 1960s, the CPB, the Communist Party of Burma,
Communist Party of Burma.
yeah, Communist Party of Burma had almost come and was about to occupy a large area near Yangon, but something went wrong. It could not. Okay, it was being actively sponsored by China, like the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia. Then again, in the last 2, 3 decades, if you see, in Kachin Independence Army, in Kachin, Arakan Army in Rakhine state, in Shan state, there are 2, 3 outfits. They have been constantly engaging the Myanmar regime in conflict. Both parties are sniping at each other. In Kachin, which is contiguous to Arunachal Pradesh, as you go up, there are many areas, liberated zones, I would say, the Myanmar army can't go, even now. So this is not the first time, but this is on this occasion, the quantum of violence, the degree of resistance is much more. The degree of resistance has also come from the Burmese people, what is called as the Bamar people in the plains. Okay, more resistance has come from there. There's a place called Magwe region, massive sniping at the military convoys, ambushes. So the resistance is widespread. This is unprecedented. But this is not the first time that the military regime, some outfits are fighting the regime, but this is widespread. The intensity is more, the degree of resistance has been much more. And there is some kind of a coalition this time between different rebel outfits. And the national unity government, the underground government, is trying to forge a broader unity among all these groups. But that has not worked out so far.
Yeah, fascinating. Fascinating. It doesn't look like the conflict is going to end anytime soon, but as you're saying, the coalition between rebel groups is intensifying.
Certainly.
Where do you see India in all this? Last question. Where do you see India in all this?
Difficult question to answer, rather. So I believe it's not very easy for the Indian government to answer also. India has been maintaining a very neutral stance, I would say. But the Myanmar army, Myanmar military regime, we are told by some of my very reliable sources in New Delhi, military regime is not very happy with the Indian government. This is what I have been told by my sources in some departments. So it's a very tricky situation for me, India, because, excuse me, suppose India plays a neutral stance. India does not interfere, which India is doing. But there is no guarantee that the military regime will come and say, okay, fine, we support your projects. We will ensure that it is completed. That is a tricky situation. Now, even if the Myanmar military regime says that, okay, fine, we will complete your project, but what about the violence? It cannot control the violence. Completing the project doesn't mean that immediately the arteries, the highways will open up, there will be commercial traffic, there will be trade flowing in. I mean, that is very unpredictable. So I believe the situation for India is a bit tricky. India has to manage many things at the same time. It's walking on a tightrope. So far as Myanmar is concerned, it's much complex than Afghanistan, much complex because the China factor is also there.
Yeah.
China wouldn't loosen its grip on Myanmar. Myanmar is too crucial for China. It's too crucial because it will give access to China to the Indian Ocean. Okay. So now China would not want India or the West to come and have a dominant role in Myanmar. And the Myanmar military regime has become dependent on China, despite the fact that the army generals, they don't like the Chinese very much.
Yeah.
Okay, but there's no option. China is supporting the regime, Russia is supporting the regime, but India has not gone up so openly. India is trying to play a neutral stance there. So it's a tightrope. It's working on it's a difficult situation. India has to be very careful actually.
Fascinating,
So
Rajeev. Fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't give much hope for the Kaladan project.
And one more thing I'd like to tell you, I'd like to add one more thing also. The activities of the Indian rebel groups in Myanmar. Okay. Now in 2019, because of the insistence, because of continuous demands from New Delhi, the military regime had launched a crackdown in 2019 on Operation Sunrise. Many rebel establishments were demolished. But we hear now that the rebel groups are again regrouping now in the Naga zone. So now Myanmar army is already overstretched. Its effective fighting force is only about 120,000, which is actually not very small. But then these 120,000 troops, where will you distribute? I mean, when the resistance movement is all over the country. So under no circumstances will I feel that the Myanmar army will now listen to New Delhi and launch an operation against the rebel groups from the northeast, because the rebel groups are not creating any problems. Their objective is to come and launch strikes in the northeast. and they are regrouping also now, I'm told. Okay, so this is a very complex scenario there.
Complex, complicated, and no apparent solutions in sight. Rajeev Bhattacharya, great talking to you. Fascinating.
Thank you.
For those of us who are interested in the Northeast but don't get the time and opportunity to really know what's going on behind the scenes. Thank you very much. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you so much.
And for those of you who have been following this conversation, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media, Twitter and internet. Thank you and good night.